Emma stepped off the train, the crisp autumn air swirling around her like a whispered welcome. Paris. The city of lights, of love, of art. It had pulsed in her dreams for years, a symphony of cobblestone streets and charming cafes. Now, sketchbook clutched in her hand, it was finally her reality. She wandered, each step a delightful discovery. The aroma of baking bread, the vibrant chatter of flower sellers, the graceful sweep of the Seine reflecting the sky. Finally, her feet, as if guided by destiny, led her to a small cafe tucked away on a quiet corner. Le Petit Amour, the sign proclaimed in swirling script. Emma smiled. It felt like fate. The cafe was bathed in a warm, golden glow. The air hummed with soft conversation and the clinking of coffee cups. She found a table by the window, her gaze drifting over the other patrons. A couple, deep in conversation, their hands intertwined on the table. An elderly gentleman, absorbed in his newspaper. And then, her eyes met his. He was seated across the room, a writer, she guessed, by the worn leather notebook open before him. He was handsome, with dark, tousled hair and eyes that held a depth that both intrigued and unnerved her. For a heartbeat, their gazes locked, a silent acknowledgement. Then, as if startled by the connection, he looked away, a faint blush creeping up his neck. Emma quickly averted her own gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. She pulled out her sketchbook, her fingers trembling slightly as she picked up a charcoal pencil. The encounter, fleeting as it was, had left her feeling breathless, strangely seen. She began to sketch, her hand moving instinctively, trying to capture the way the light played across his face, the intensity of his eyes. The afternoon drifted by in a haze of coffee, charcoal sketches, and stolen glances. Each time their eyes met, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them, leaving Emma breathless. She found herself stealing glances at him when he wasn't looking, studying the way his brow furrowed in concentration as he wrote, the way his lips curved into a smile when he paused to sip his coffee. He was like a captivating mystery, and she found herself longing to know more. A sudden gust of wind swept through the open door of the cafe, sending a flurry of leaves swirling through the air. Emma gasped as the wind snatched her sketchbook from the table, pages scattering across the floor. People rushed to help her gather them, but it was the man from across the room who reached her first. He crouched beside her, his fingers brushing against hers as he retrieved a loose page. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she looked up at him, their faces inches apart. He held the page out to her, his eyes widening slightly as he saw the sketch she had been working on. "This is me," he stammered, his fingers tightening slightly on the edge of the paper. Emma felt a blush creep up her cheeks. I'm an artist," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "I was sketching." "It's incredible," he breathed, his eyes still fixed on the drawing. He looked up at her, his gaze intense. "You captured something, I don't know, essential." His words, spoken with such sincerity, sent a shiver down her spine. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the air thick with unspoken emotions. Then, he cleared his throat, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I'm Julien," he said, extending his hand. "A writer, as you may have guessed." "Emma," she replied, her hand trembling slightly as she took his. His touch sent a jolt of electricity through her, confirming what her heart already knew. This was no ordinary encounter. This was something different. Their initial awkwardness melted away as easily as sugar in a hot café au lait. Julien, it turned out, was just as captivated by Emma as she was by him. They spent hours talking that first day, their conversation flowing effortlessly from art to literature to their deepest dreams. He was a writer, working on his first novel, a sweeping love story set against the backdrop of historical Paris. Emma, an aspiring artist, had come to the city to lose herself in its beauty, to find her own voice through charcoal and canvas. They were kindred spirits, drawn together by a shared passion for creativity and a love for all things Parisian. Over the next few days, Le Petit Amour became their sanctuary. They fell into a comfortable routine, meeting each morning at their usual table by the window. Julien would work on his novel, the tap-tap-tap of his fingers on the keyboard, a comforting counterpoint to the gentle scratching of Emma's charcoal pencil. They would steal glances at each other's work, offering encouragement and gentle critiques. Julien's writing, lyrical and evocative, painted vivid pictures in Emma's mind, inspiring her own artistic explorations. Emma's sketches, filled with emotion and raw talent, breathed life into Julien's words, giving them a tangible form. Their days were not confined to the cozy walls of the café, however. Hand in hand, they explored the hidden corners of Paris, their laughter echoing through the cobblestone streets. They strolled along the banks of the Seine, watching the boats glide by, sharing whispered secrets beneath the Eiffel Tower's twinkling lights. With each passing day, their bond deepened, their connection becoming a tangible thing, a comforting weight in the pit of Emma's stomach. Paris, once a city of dreams, was quickly becoming a city of love, its every corner imbued with the magic of their budding romance. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the Seine. Emma and Julien sat on a bench along the riverbank, their shoulders touching, their fingers intertwined. The air was alive with the sounds of the city, the distant hum of traffic, the laughter of children playing, the gentle lapping of water against the stone embankment. Julien had been reading to her from his novel, his voice a low, melodic murmur that sent shivers down her spine. His story, a tale of star-crossed lovers in 19th-century Paris, resonated deeply with Emma. It spoke of a love that transcended time, a connection that defied logic and reason. It was a love that mirrored their own. He paused in his reading, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the setting sun. "I can't help but think," he said softly, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand, "that our story is just as magical as any I could write." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had lost count of the times she had thought the same thing. Their meeting had been nothing short of serendipitous, their connection instantaneous and undeniable. It felt as though fate itself had conspired to bring them together. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. "Emma," he whispered, his voice husky with emotion. "You have brought a joy into my life that I never thought possible. You inspire me, challenge me, make me want to be a better man, a better writer." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, blurring her vision. She had never felt so seen, so understood, by another human being. "Julien," she breathed, her voice choked with emotion. "You are." He silenced her with a kiss, his lips soft and tentative at first, then deepening with passion as their bodies molded together. The world around them faded away. All that mattered was the feel of his arms around her, the taste of him on her lips, the knowledge that she was loved, truly loved, for the first time in her life. When they finally broke apart, breathless and shaken, the first stars were beginning to appear in the twilight sky. Julien tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his touch sending shivers down her spine. "I love you, Emma," he whispered, his voice filled with raw emotion. "With every fiber of my being." Emma's heart soared. I love you too, Julien, she replied, her voice barely a whisper. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with promise and the weight of their newfound love.